So a few weeks ago, I made a video talking about how Append is coming soon, and it seems like everyone's only concerned about having to use multiple fingers. But I want to highlight some tech that I'm excited for. Today, I want to talk about crosshands, or crossovers. But before we do that, I just want to quickly introduce myself. Hi. I'm Jeff. Or you can call me La Loser. I play a ton of rhythm games. I know it doesn't seem like it considering the channel is like 90% Sekai content, but I promise you I love all types of rhythm games. And my goal here on YouTube is to get you guys to love them too. So if you have an idea or topic you'd like me to yap about, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I'll add it to my ever-growing list of videos. Anyways, let's get back to crosshands. So what are crosshands? Basically, they're just patterns that force one of your hands to reach over or under your other hand to hit a note or hold. Now, this doesn't sound very complicated on its own, but it can lead to some very funky looking patterns, and once you've gotten the hang of it, they can actually be pretty fun. Unfortunately, you won't be seeing a ton of these in the lower end of master charts, but in Append charts, they're pretty much sprinkled in every level. So let's get into some tips on doing crosshands. Now, even though the name is crosshands, the most you'll have to cross over is palm over palm. So if you can comfortably reach the opposite sides of the lanes like this, you've pretty much got it. Very rarely will you ever have to stretch this far, but knowing that you're able to means that you can tackle any crosshands that they throw at you. The only exceptions are if you're playing on a huge tablet with a giant screen or if you have small hands, but even then you'll just have to move your hands a little further. If you're playing on a phone though, you won't have to cross over very far. It's more like just overlapping your fingers is usually enough. Now for this next tip, you have to understand that the majority of charts are written so that when you do have to perform a crosshand, it's very likely that the note that you're reaching for is a single note or a single hold. Very rarely will you ever be forced to hit a chord or multiple notes. So to take advantage of this, 90% of the time when I cross over, it's only using one finger. Specifically my middle finger, because they're the longest. I know it gets pretty overwhelming when you're trying to learn new tech. So with this, I really only have to worry about my finger placement for my middle finger. And then obviously when you get more comfortable with the motions, you can start hitting the crosshands that involve chords. Now for tip number 3, anticipating crosshands is actually a lot easier than you think. I want to say almost all the crosshands you'll find in Append will usually be telegraphed with a hold or trace notes. So for example, you get a hold and it starts to slide to the opposite side. It is very right to assume that the next note will be a crosshand. So in preparation, I like to lift my opposite hand up and kind of hover over top my other hand, so I'm ready to hit the next note. And even if the next note isn't a crosshand, you're still in a good position. And for tip number 4, you want to trust the chart maker. A lot of the times when there are crosshands, the chart will guide your hands back to their starting positions to resolve the pattern. Very rarely will they ever just leave you hanging, stuck in a crosshand. And even if they do, they'll usually give you some time to reset it yourself. And lastly, for tip number 5, use the entire hit zone to your advantage. You can tap anywhere from basically the halfway point of the screen and downwards, and it'll still register. So don't feel like you're confined to only the judgment line. Now for some recommendations. Kira PP Master 27, at the end of the song there's a hold that has a few crosshands that you can practice on. Awake Now Master 30. Around the middle of the song, there's a hold that has some flicks you can crosshand with, but it doesn't really resolve cleanly, so I recommend switching to a different hand for the hold. Setsuna Trip 32. The holds in the beginning you can practice following along and trying to work on your finger positioning, but the rest of the song is pretty hard, not gonna lie. I can't really recommend this one if you're just trying to practice crosshands, but they're in there if you want to try. Now for some Append charts. Becoming Potatoes 25 is probably the easiest song here to practice crosshands, and probably the most forgiving if you're not confident with your finger positioning yet. Goodbye Sengen 27. and Bad Apple 30. Specifically, the middle section with all the holds I think is great practice. So the list this time is pretty short because, well, there's Crosshands in almost every append chart, except for a small handful. These are just some songs that have a decent amount of them throughout the song without being too overwhelming. Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Let me know what your thoughts are on Crosshands. I have friends that absolutely hate them and will do everything in their power to avoid doing them or just avoid the song altogether. I personally think they're fun, especially if they're well written into the chart. And I would love to see more of them in lower level master charts, but that's going to be pretty rare. Thank you guys so much for watching this video to the end. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, and possibly consider subscribing if you haven't already. If you found this type of video to be your cup of tea, good news. I have more being worked on. So be on the lookout for that in the future. Anyways, here's a video YouTube thinks you might enjoy.